Here in lesson 3, we're going to look at some of the tools that we have in our tool belt to monitor for resources, monitor resource utilization, and ensure that we know how to tell by looking at some of these tools when we're actually under contention. So let's dive right in. Now, the more tools we have at our disposal, the better. And the tools that we use can give us some insight into different parts of the environment. Different parts of the environment like ESXi or your virtual machines, okay? Or even individual application benchmarking tools. Once we get information out of those tools, we can look at a methodology, kind of a method to the madness, if you will, about the changes that we might make in order to improve performance. So we'll look at some of these tools that we have to monitor, and then in particular in this lesson, we're going to look at vCenter's performance charts, and we're going to look at how to customize those performance charts to give us the information that we need in order to ensure that our environments are operating properly and efficiently. Let's start by looking at this performance tuning methodology. Okay? First thing that we want to say is if you've got a live environment on one monitor and you're watching this training video on another monitor, don't stop in the middle of a slide, please, and go and make some changes in production. Okay? Do not make casual changes to production at all. You should have good change management practices in your environment and ensure, of course, that you follow those practices so that you're able to identify a limiting resource, make some proposals about how to alleviate that contention that you have in the environment, make one change at a time, please, one at a time, and then go back and re-benchmark, okay? See if the change that you made did good or did bad, okay? If it improved the problem or if it worsened the issue. If it improved the problem, great, stop there. See if there are other changes that might make more improvements. Record benchmarks, make the change, record the benchmarks afterwards, see if it did good or not, okay? Don't make casual changes, don't make multiple changes, and certainly don't make changes while you're watching this training video with me, okay? I actually had a student in class one time go, oh, that must be what's wrong. This was probably on a Wednesday afternoon, okay? He made some changes. After lunch, we never saw the guy again. I never found out what happened, okay? So please be careful in your environments. Use whatever tools you have, and different tools run in different locations can give you different perspectives. Inside your guest operating systems, you'll get a good idea of how your guest operating system is performing within the limits or within the box of the VM that you've created for it. Have you allocated enough resources? Are those resources being executed efficiently? I can't necessarily tell that from the VM. But inside the guest OS, you can use tools in Windows like Perfmon. And included in VMware Tools, there's a library that gets loaded in Perfmon that can give you, and I'll show you this hopefully in one of these upcoming slides, a perspective of what the host sees as well. So that if you like Perfmon, you can use Perfmon charts to give you not only what's happening in the guest OS, but even some of the configuration at the very least on the ESXi side of things. You can use Task Manager, very easy thing to do on the Windows side. On the Linux side, you can use Top, which is a really excellent tool. From the vSphere side of thing, or from at least outside the guest OS, vCenter performance charts are excellent. We'll look at that in this lesson. vRealize Operations Manager is an excellent tool that can gather lots of statistics together and lots of performance charts from lots of different environments, from within guest operating systems, from within applications, from vCenter it collects data, and then can give you recommendations as how to improve performance in your environment. Take away virtual CPUs from this VM, add virtual CPUs and virtual memory to this other VM. Gives you very specific recommendations. A wonderful, wonderful product. On ESXi, we have tools. ESX Top and the remote version are ESX Top. We can look at logs to see if there are any issues. And the logs come from vCenter, they come from ESXi, and so on, right? So lots of different places that you can look at tools. This is an example here of Windows Task Manager, I think running out of a Windows 10 VM. But we can see all kinds of great stuff going on here. And it looks like this guy's doing pretty well. Note, by the way, it shows the CPU running on the ESXi host here, right? It shows that we've got an AMD Phenom 2X4 955 processor. And it shows that this VM has 4 virtual CPUs, okay? 1 socket across 4 cores, okay, at a 3.2 gigahertz speed. It shows that we've got 12 gigs of memory allocated to us. It shows how fast your disk, your network, and shows how fast your disk is running as well. Really great tools, and it gives us, if not very specific recommendations, we can look at this to see in general whether the VM has been allocated enough resources or maybe too many resources. Here's Perfmon. And Perfmon has been around for a really, really long time. It's actually a single-threaded application, okay? But I wanted to show you a couple of things here in the counters that become available once VMware Tools is installed. You'll notice it's virtual machine memory here. It shows you how much active and how much is ballooned, and there are other counters that you can grab. In terms of CPU, it can show you, look at all this nice thing. It's any limits, reservations, and shares that are set on your CPU. We can actually see this now inside of Windows, and it uses VMware Tools to communicate with the ESXi host to ask ESXi about the virtual machine's own configuration. Now here's ESX Top. And ESX Top is an amazing tool, and it is a command line tool. It's included with ESXi. So if you SSH or over to your ESXi host, or you use an ESX shell right from a console, just type ESX Top, and you get all kinds of information about your host. The first thing you get to see is the host configuration itself. How many VMs are running, how many virtual CPUs have been allocated, what's the average load across the ESXi host. It'll show you how many cores your ESXi host has by looking at each of these numbers here. We can see 1.8 and 3.9. That tells me that core 0 is running at 1.8% utilization and core 1 is running at 3.9% utilization. Of course, most of us will have more than 2 cores available to an ESXi host. And it'll show you also whether, if you have multi-thread or hyper-threading enabled, it'll show you each of the threads, and then right under that, the average of those 2 threads, and that's the average utilization of the physical core in mind. Now down here, we can get information on CPU, on memory, on our disk controllers, on our disks themselves, on the network, and it can give us a really good idea as to whether or not we're running in contention. We can get real-time metrics every few seconds out of this performance chart or out of this performance tool. Have a look at, in this case, CPU ready, the sum of the ready values of all of the cores in each of these virtual machines that are running on the host. Okay, so this gives us, this is 0.12%. I think we're doing pretty good on this ESXi host. We'll look a little bit deeper into CPU ready and some other performance metrics in the next lesson. Now, when we come back, we're actually going to have a look at vCenter's performance charts and look at how to build our custom charts in vCenter.